Welcome, my friends, back to Marvel Snap. Today is a big day for Snap. Let's check the news tab. Oh, well, if you're playing on a mobile device, anywhere other than PC where the game actually works, there'd be a big notification here that a new update has dropped. We have balance changes for January, and we have new bundles in the shop. Are these bundles worth your purchase? And what has happened with the balance change of the cards? Should you be adapting your decks? Should you be looking at any of the new cards that have been buffed? We're going to break it all down in this video. First up are the bundles, and we can knock these out very quickly. We have Primal Masterpiece running for only 1 week with 3 different variant arts for Sabretooth, White Tiger, and Kraven. We have the boosters to be able to upgrade all of these. I believe that's enough to be able to get them up to infinite, and then you have the avatars broken out for all of them, along with 1,500 credits. Now, this pack is selling for gold, which previously had been the most desirable set of bundles, but the previous bundles had contained collector tokens, making them much more desirable. Here, getting the 1,500 credits is taking us to cover 1,200 of this gold. So then the rest, the other 1,800 gold, is accounting for these 3 variants. Now, beautiful art, they are relevant and useful cards. They are not. Probably the best one is the White Tiger, both in terms of art, in my opinion, and then also the relevancy of the card, and it breaks it down to 600 gold per variant, which is a tiny bit of savings if you were to pick them up out of the carousel rather. This is a pass for me. If you're really in love with the art of some of these cards, of course, then you might want to go ahead and spring for it. And if you have been stockpiling a lot of gold anyway, then it could feel like it's easier to be able to come into the acquisition of this bundle. But I would still recommend banking up a larger stockpile of 6,000 gold, which had been the price point for the previous bundles that had contained collector tokens. It doesn't look like we're going to be getting one of those this month, but if we get one in the future, that was far and away the best way to be able to spend your gold. Now, the much more pressing question, the Pro Bundle $100 question. Are you guys going to dump $100 USD? I think it's roughly the same throughout other currency exchanges throughout the world, though I know there are some outliers given the mobile game microtransaction industry. $100 is no longer a micro transaction, my friends. This is a macro transaction. This is more than a AAA game in its entirety. But the 12,500 credits, how far is this really taking us? To convert without a bundle from $100 into gold and then turning that gold into credits, we would get 10,000 credits. This means that they are spotting us for picking up the credits in this one-time special offer, 2,500 credits, which is then means that they're giving you effectively an extra $25 worth of value on this bundle. So if you are someone who is inclined to spend this kind of budget on the game, then picking up this bundle as a one-time purchase is going to be worth it. But it is not such an excessively generous value that if you're someone who is less inclined to be spending money on the game, that you should spend here instead of elsewhere, such as if you're budgeting out for the rest of the year how much you're going to be spending on this hobby, and you're looking at either buying battle passes or the Pro Bundle, I still highly recommend picking up the battle passes in the future months throughout the rest of the year, rather than dropping this chunk of change right now on the Pro Bundle and then cutting yourself out of the benefits and the really high value that they give you on that battle pass throughout the rest of the year. Before we jump into the card changes, yes, we have Pinned Bast as the next acquisition for our collection. It means we're going to miss out on any of the Series 5 cards that are releasing this month, but honestly, I was not too excited about any of them looking at the current leaks, and Bast looks like she's going to fill a much more interesting position in the collection moving forward. Now let's talk about all those card changes. Now, the patch was supposed to have been live last week. The changes got leaked. There was a bug or a game-breaking hang-up that was revealed in the patch, so they delayed the release. Now things have been ironed out. And we have first up Arrow. 5'8" previously, she had become the face of the Deathwave archetype, and she has been reverted to her previous state. She had originally released as a 5'7". Nobody was really interested in playing her, and then suddenly she exploded onto the map absolutely everywhere. Allowing you to control your opponent in those final turns is so pivotal. You can effectively sack one lane and then continue forcing the opponent to play to that lane as long you win, as long as you have a tempo advantage developed in the other lanes. So she has been nerfed. I think she's still fine. The ability is untouched. It's actually a little bit more glitzier now. She has an animation to go along with her. It's very interesting to see the community's perception of cards change through buffs and nerfs. Nobody was looking at her at 5'7", came up to 5'8". People realized she was really good, and I think that she's going to remain. She's lost a half step and a little bit more, considering that one of the popular lines of play was to be able to double her power with Shuri. Now that's looking at 2 power less. Still very solid. Now, if you are running Arrow, because she just became completely plug and play. If you were looking for a 5 cost, you would run Arrow. So if you're playing a deck that is not really trying to utilize her control, I would recommend looking at Red Skull instead. The Red Skull 0 package is just so stat efficient. It is absolutely obscene, especially because 0 can also combo with some other popular cards that are current in the meta, like the Lizard, like the Max. So if you're running Arrow just for a plug and play 5 cost, I would actually recommend starting to look at the Red Skull 0 package instead. But of course, if you're using a list that is able to leverage her control abilities, then she's still the girl for you. Next up, it's Galactus, the very first premium card that has been nerfed, taking him from a 6-3 down into a 6-2. It doesn't really matter. The only way that it matters is in a very niche case where Galactus is flipping opposite a card that you played, and then having 1 power less is going to change the initiative going into the turn with only the single location remaining. It doesn't matter. Galactus was not winning matches by only a single point. He was winning handily. Whenever Galactus successfully hits the board early, I retreat. I've been burned way too many times. I don't normally run decks that are able to keep up with him, and especially with the control cards that he has available, it's almost impossible, even if you have the tools to be able to combat him, to still beat him once it comes down to that single location gameplay. He is still on the watch list, meaning that I'm a little bit more hesitant to recommend purchasing him out of the token shop, because they're saying that they're looking at more holistic changes to his design coming in the future. I'm sure that they're still going to want him to be good, but I think people are getting tired of just bouncing when he hits the board, and so we might see a larger nerf, maybe similar to Nakia, where they just wanted a palette cleanser to get her out for a while, and now they're actually looking at bringing Nakia back, but she's at the end of the list. So Galactus, if you are playing Galactus, you can still dominate, but just be aware that the devs are considering more changes in the future. Leader brought down from 6-4 to 6-3. This, similar to the Galactus, this is a card that people were crying against as being an incredibly pivotal card, and they decided just to tank off 1 little point. Now, I think that it does slow Leader down, again, a half step, because people were using his 4-power body to be able to catch up at a location and then maintain tempo with the opponent. At 3 strength, he doesn't do it quite as well. It makes him a little bit more desirable for Mr. Negative to maybe include him, though Mr. Negative was pretty handily filling up his board as it is and not having the space to be able to leverage a Leader. I think Leader is still one of the best finisher cards in the game, period. Full stop, even at 6-3. So we've got the nerf sign up here, but he's not really slowing down any. The meta decks that were running Leader are still going to be there and still going to be incredibly powerful. Slotting in next is the Nova. A little bit of a head scratcher to me. Nova down from 1-2 into 1-1. They've cut him in half again. They cut his ability in half back in the beta. He had been +2 to everybody on your board when he was destroyed. Now they're cutting down his power in half, but you're just always destroying Nova. So the cases where his 1 strength on body matter is just so minute. What it does matter, again, is similar to Galactus in terms of determining initiative for those early pivotal turns, where if the opponent is running, like, so someone plays Nova against you and you have armor or you have Cosmo, trying to then keep the opponent from being able to destroy the Nova, it's more likely that you'll be able to flip first in time to prevent that. But it's going to be a very, again, small set of niche cases where this nerf ever matters. Slotting in next, and now we are looking at some interesting balance changes. We've got all the nerfs that have been covered here. Groot and Drax. Their base power of the cards is both going up. Groot is going to be a 3-4, Drax is going to be a 4-5, but their ability triggers have been taken down 1. So Groot had been gaining 3, now he's only going to be gaining 2. Drax had been gaining 4, now he's only going to be gaining 3. And this puts them in, again, a very interesting place. It does make them, their stat line, if you miss, much better. But I don't see them really getting helped out here. if I was running a deck that was trying to leverage the Guardians, what I actually wanted was unique situations where I would be able to get multiple triggers on their abilities to be able to outscale the opposing cards. Otherwise, I might as well just play Max instead of Groot and Jets Jones instead of Drax. So I'm completely unenthused about these cards even after the changes. In fact, I'm less interested in trying to work with them because they don't have as much of an upside as they did before. I would have much rather seen them get +1 power on their main bodies and still had their abilities unchanged. So that then, I mean, Groot scaling up into a 3-7 rather than a 3-6, who was going to really cry about that on the chance that he was actually able to call out the opponent and get played to the same location that they played? I hope the Guardians get a little bit more love because I do like the card design, embracing the simultaneous play that Snap has, which is a unique element all around, but right now these guys are going to stay in the bottom tiers. We are about to get to my favorite part of the changes, which is the buffs. You're going to have to let me know down in the comments if you guys are thinking up theory crafting new decks that can utilize the buffed cards. I'd love to be testing them out. Also, if you guys enjoy this style of video where we break down the balance changes, talk about how you can adapt your decks based on the balance changes, then show some love to the video. It really does help promote it to the rest of the community. Let's dive in. Next up is the Hazmat. Finally, some buffs that we could really get excited about, from 2-1 going up to 2-2. This makes her viable in many more lists. She had already had a series of very complex combo lists that were leaning into her effect to get it to trigger over and over again and then mitigate the detriment to your side of the board through bouncing cards back or Luke Cage, some other factor. And these combo lists, when they really came together, could be quite powerful, but just overall Hazmat, it was unlikely that you were able to get the full combo off, and it could be easy for the opponent to disrupt. Now, Hazmat is looking like you could plug her in, especially if you have Luke Cage, who is already considering somewhat plug-and-play viability of the 2-cost. Also, if you're running Lizard, Luke Cage prevents the Lizard from going down. He prevents all your cards from getting hurt by the Scorpion, which is absolutely everywhere, and also against the locations that debuff your cards. So Luke Cage is quite desirable just as a plug-and-play. And then Hazmat looks even better. As long as you are tagging 2 more opposing cards than your cards with the debuff, overall, you're coming out at a tempo play, and then any more than that, and you are well ahead. So this 1 power change on a very cheap card does mean a lot. I'm going to be playing around with Hazmat a lot more, probably trying to integrate her into my bounce list next. Stay tuned to the channel to see how well that works out for me. Next up, we have the Black Cat. 3-6 coming up to 3-7. Honestly, I'd forgotten that this was a card. Some Hela lists were trying to play this, but not very successfully. She hadn't really broken into the Hela list. Now, at 3-7, that is a stat line that you have to respect. And what I'm percolating in my mind right now is a combo Zabu Surfer list that is using Lady Sif, Absorbing Man, and Ghost Rider. You get the Black Cat to discard herself. Ghost Rider could just pull her to board. You can have the Absorbing Man be able to ping on Ghost Rider again if you've used Lady Sif to cut a larger card, and then all of these cards coming in at the 3 and 4 cost price point either give them the energy decrease of the Zabu or the feature buff from the Surfer. Maybe something is here. We'll be tinkering around with this as well. Once again, stay tuned to the channel. Kind of excited to see if I can get Black Cat to the board in a relevant way. And 3-7, I think 3-7 is enough of a motivation to get me working on it. And now Nakia. Nakia is back. She had been absolutely everywhere when she was adding +2 to all cards in hand. That was obscene. Her ability is unchanged. +2 power to the leftmost cards in your hand, but her body has been buffed from 3-1 to 3-2. I think this means that Nakia is fully back, especially with one of the most popular meta lists being Sarah, Brood, Surfer. Now you just Nakia into the Brood alongside potentially the Forge into the Brood. You can actually compound the effects of these cards together depending on the timing of when you're dropping the cards. And then Surfer being able to come in. Nakia with the extra 1 point on her body just maintains tempo. You're developing for your 3 energy, 6 power, 2 on the board, and then +2 on 2 cards in hand. As long as those cards in hand hit the board, she's a net even play. And if those buffs are hitting something like Brood, Mr. Sinister, any card that has a doubling effect, then you're getting even more value on top. So I think that Nakia is definitely going to be something to experiment with. That brings us to the end of the balance changes, and I'm a little disappointed at how short they are. I can understand that the devs are taking a light hand at the balance changes because friendly matches are promised to be coming at the end of the month. They probably don't want to upend the meta too much going into the release of those friendly matches, because that's going to be the advent of the very first community tournaments, league play, friendly matches, etc., etc. That's going to be huge for the community, and I can understand why they're not shaking things up too much. But there are some fairly notable omissions to the balance changes, and if we think back to everything that got changed, Galactus was the only Beyond Series 3 or Battle Pass card that got nerfed. And we have some huge outliers in the Battle Pass cards, the Series 5 cards, the Series 4 cards. So while Arrow and Leader were certainly outliers, while people were sick of playing them, and while I can understand that they needed to be nerfed, they were also the free-to-play players' chance to be able to hang with people who have all of these other cards and are smashing with the Battle Pass decks up to infinite and beyond. So it's a little bit bittersweet to me that Arrow and Leader both got called out in these changes, because on my free-to-play account, I was using them heavily to be able to still climb to infinite. Now we're going to have to be tinkering around. I'm sure we'll still be able to do it. We'll be able to find other options to improvise, adapt, and overcome. But I hope that in the future we could see some changes on some of these other boys up here to be able to keep everything a little bit more level. I'm of course interested in hearing all of your takes on the balance changes down in the comments. If you guys have enjoyed the video, then leave a like. It helps us out a lot. Subscribe to the channel to be able to see the theory crafting that comes around the balance changes. And then we've got new hot locations and friends battles coming up at the end. When we get friendly battles, you can join up on the Discord if you want to be able to find matches or even play up against me. I would love to face you on the card table. Till next time, thank you guys for watching. Keep on snapping.